Alright, so I'm going to be walking you through the changing of the upper and lower control arms on a Jaguar X350, X358. This is actually a 2009 Jaguar XJ8. And as you can see here, I kind of laid out all the tools. I did this already on the driver's side. I'm going to film the passenger side today and really just focus on some of the key areas that you need to be aware of. The first area to be aware of is you do need to remove the brake caliper out of your way. So I've already used the emergency brake opening. I have a bi-directional scanner, so I just went ahead and did that, and so now I could get into my brake parts. And the reason you have to do that is because of this bolt under here. It will not clear this spot right here unless you remove the brake caliper. You also need to remove the brake line right here because that goes right through the upper control arm. Once you're removing the upper control arm, you're going to need to do that. I've already disconnected the emergency brake electric connector, but you know, the numbers here are not too bad as far as what you have to remove. You have to remove this part here, back here, really just those three bolts need to be removed for the upper control arm. So we'll go through that piece first. There are a couple additional tools you'll need. You want some needle nose pliers, you'll need a crowbar, and you'll need to move out your pistons for your brake, because you're going to remove that caliper and you need to reset all that stuff. The reason why you need the crowbar, and we'll get to it within the installation part, but you need to really get in here. Sorry, let me get this organized here. But this has to push down on this so that that bolt right there will go ahead and seat properly. And we'll also use some needle nose pliers to help that too. But I'll show you that once I get into that piece. That was the most complicated area for me because it was just not going down to where I wanted it. You'll also notice I have a induction mini heater to heat the bolts. I do find this to be a pretty useful and essential tool, at least to get to those back bolts, and also the bolt that we were just talking about on right down here. This bolt here gave me a lot of problems on the other side. So, and this is a California car. It's been fully in California. It only has 62,000 miles on it. So even with that less of mileage and in a warm climate, I just found that the bolts were much easier to get off with the induction heater. So this is one of the problem areas. You have to use a needle nose plier because this part right up here starts turning while you're loosening the bolt. And you want to go ahead and on this bolt here, you want to set it like you're tightening it because it's upside down. So of course it's going to go the opposite way. And let's see, sometimes once you get enough, it stops turning. And then it should be good to go the rest of the way without the needle nose pliers. But you can see the assembly kind of popping up here. I know it's kind of a little hard to see here in the dark. I'll lighten this thing up a little bit in post. This gets you this very difficult bolt down here, and you should be able to unscrew the rest yourself, and you have that out of there. As you can see too, I have removed the caliper out of my way too. That's more for the lower assembly. I kind of wish I'd waited because I'm hanging off of the upper control arm that I'm going to be removing. And you can see I still have the brake line attached right now, but I will be changing that out as well too. Here, one thing I like to do is get back in here with kind of a longer one, and if you could break that there, I did use the heat induction thing, but you could probably break it yourself without that. But then what you want to do is you want to switch up to a 18 millimeter that's a lot more shallower than what I have here that kind of got me in there. So the reason why you want the shallower bolt is once you start backing this thing out, you're going to kind of hit this line here that goes over to the sway bar. And you need to go ahead and get your 21-inch open wrench, and you want to come in here sorry, this is to hold it in there. I think you have to get which, oh, it's like this. This is it. So this is the way to get in with the open wrench. You got to kind of come underneath the brake line through here, not above. Above does not work. Below. And then once you're in there, you're going to get in there fine. Actually, this might be an 18 again. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's an 18-inch, so you do not need a 21. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're going to want to get an 18-inch on the other side of this. You want to open wrench. You want to come in under here so that you can grab it there. And I actually have it. You can kind of, I can feel it in there. You do not want to come from the top. The top does not work. There's not enough bend. So you need to get underneath the brake line and the strut and get in there. And then basically you could hold that there. And once you've broken this with a longer 18 millimeter, I like using a shorter 18 millimeter to go ahead and back that out, because you're going to hit this piece here. The other thing I tried too is you of course can run, you know, extensions. I found that didn't really work on the other side. It might work a little bit better on this side. Looks like there's a little bit more clearance. But either go with extension or go with a really short 18 millimeter. I did fine with the short 18 millimeter because this thing's gonna kind of unscrew here, and once you're out of there, you're in good shape. So once you get enough space in there, you can go ahead and use a ratchet. I was able to eventually do that because you have very little clearance when you're kind of in here like this. You're basically just very slowly inching it up, but once you get enough space, basically use that shallow 18 millimeter socket and kind of go in there, and you could just, you know, once you get your spot in there, and make sure you have your 18 millimeter on the other side to unscrew the bolt. So this bolt here, what I found, I mean, you could probably bend this out of the way and do whatever you want to do, but I just removed this bolt and this bolt. They are both 10 millimeter sockets, I believe. Let's see, where's my, yeah. So they're easy to kind of get out there. Just removing these two bolts will give you some extra pull here so that you could kind of, you know, get that bolt removed out of there. It also helps really with the lower bolt more so. But both situations, it does kind of help to have these small bolts removed. They're plastic, so they're easy to go ahead and kind of remove. You do not need to remove the whole wheel arch cover. But once we get that done, we already have this bolt done and we have this bolt done. So let's see how we do with getting that bolt up. So this bolt's one of the easier ones. Basically, I just run two 18 millimeter sockets and just kind of start cranking away and loosening it. I did not use any of the heater on this one. I probably really didn't need it on the back one, but it kind of helped a little bit because it looked like it kind of unseized some of the rubber or something. I don't know. It smoked a lot, so it kind of helped a bit. But this one's super easy here, and I already have the brake line disconnected there. So you do have to do bleeding of your brakes after you're all done with this. At least that's what I would recommend, because you are going to lose some brake fluid. Might as well just do it. Honestly, it's easier compared to everything else you're doing today, so finish the job. But this is super simple here. Again, you don't have a lot of clearance, but you do have more clearance on this side. So what I do is I tend to just crank with this side as much as I can and get that bolt loose, and we will be ready to go. I can feel it going now, and I almost have the whole upper control arm done. Just show you how these babies look. They are just terrible. There is so much play in this back area back here. I mean, this is totally shot here. This is also really shot as well. Interesting, the what was it, the one more towards the front actually is not in bad shape. That actually looks pretty decent, but these other two spots are just terrible. So we do have the new, this is a Lemford upper control arm. I did have to buy original Jaguar lower control arms because, at least in the US, I could not find the Lemford ones. If you're in the Europe or UK, I think you can buy the Lemford ones pretty easily. But the Lemford or Jaguar, people have pointed this out before, but here's kind of the Jaguar and the Lemford, because they're original OEM part suppliers, they do have to remove the Jaguar branding on it. But this is the original Jaguar part, heck of a lot cheaper than dealership. So these are pretty easy to get back in here. Just a couple of notes. Make sure you kind of have this piece up here, because you're going to attach that back to here and attach it back down there. You want to have the brake line come inside this triangle, open triangle spot, but it's pretty easy to get back here. You just kind of got to wiggle it a little bit, and make sure you kind of, what I did is I put my bolts and nuts at the same spot. I'm going to actually replace these nuts with threaded newer nuts. The part only came, at least the Lemford part only came with the locking nut for this piece here. But you could kind of do what you need to do there. The other thing to note, really important, is do not tighten everything while it's in this position. You need to go ahead, and what I did is I measured from the middle of my tire to this point up here, and when it's on the ground with the tires with all the weight, it is actually at 15 inches, but do your own measurement, make sure you have it. So what I'm going to do later is we're going to lift off the bottom here and get this wheel to basically simulate the ride height with the wheel fully loaded on the car. That's when you want to do all of your torquing. If you don't do that, what happens is these bushings all wear out a lot faster, because they're turning more than they have to, because they're locked into a place that's not normal. So you're basically putting stress on it all the time. I've heard some people say that their bushings are gone in like a month. That seems kind of silly to me, but they'll definitely wear out a lot faster if you don't do your torquing with the ride height at normal weight on the car. So all I'm going to do right now is kind of clean up these bolts a little bit. Use a little bit of a wire brush. That's why I have my wire brush here. And I like to use a little bit of anti-seize to go ahead and just kind of get this part here so they come out always easier next time the job is there. And then I'll use some thread locker, blue thread locker at the ends here with the new bolts that I have, sorry, nuts that I have. So these locking nuts, I believe, yeah, these are the M12 nuts, and these are great, solid. I'm using them on my front suspension, and they've been fantastic. I had a problem with a mechanic that did the front suspension, and the passenger tie rod just kept coming undone all the time. Once I used one of these and some thread locker, problem solved, no problem anymore. So they're kind of my go-to now, and we'll get this going. All right, so getting this bolt back in here is a real pain because of course you gotta get your 18 millimeter back in there. But what I found is I forgot I had a small little extender of the 3/8 inch. So as you can tell there, I kind of have a 3/8 to a 3/8. Then I have an extension arm, and then I have the 18 millimeter socket. That gave me exactly enough clearance to kind of get back there. That actually would have been easier too for removal. But as you can tell, it does take some effort and the right parts to go ahead and get this thing on here as back as easy as possible. Again, don't tighten it all the way because you need to torque it with the weight on the wheel. So this is the induction heater. I find this pretty helpful for this particular job. Some of these bolts are really tough to get. This one's been kind of a pain even using an extension arm, plus my longer what do you call it, socket is kind of getting in the way, so it was giving me some problems. So I'm just trying to heat this thing up, basically just kind of leave it on here for about a minute or so, and it will start smoking, which is what it's doing right now. Still difficult to get in there. Might have to heat that one a little bit longer. So this last one over here in the back rear lower control arm, I'm going to try to get this not so fuzzy. You can see basically you have a locking nut right here, washer basically here, and then what I use is I just use an extension here to get to this one. I'm using a really long, well in this case a torque wrench, but a wrench, and doesn't have to be a torque wrench for this piece. And I'm just kind of loosening that thing up and getting it out of there. And then I've loosened up this. This is a 21-inch bolt also. And then this is a pretty easy one, 21-inch and 18-inch on the other side. This is one where we had to kind of disassemble the, what do you call it, the rotor and the brake pads. I reattached the brake pad, the caliper, just because it was just easier instead of having it dangle, especially when I was replacing the upper control arm. So unfortunately, to get this all out of here and move it, you do have to get the tie rod off. This gives it the extra room that it needs in here. As you can see too, I'm hitting this bolt, so I am gonna have to remove my caliper again, but that's pretty easy to do. And but that's the problem. This whole bolt will not fully remove out of here, and unfortunately I need it to, because it's still partially enough in there to not get the lower part out. So we're gonna push that back in there, and we're gonna move that bolt. But tie rod comes off, that's pretty easy to do. Just bolt on that. Okay, the other thing you need to do is you need to jack up the wheel assembly so it is where it would be with the tire on. In my car it was 15 inches, or yeah, 15 inches from the middle of the wheel to the arch. That's what I have it cranked up to right now. And now you need to go ahead and tighten all these bolts. This one is a 133 torque. Back there is a 163 torque. Same with the 163 torque on this side as well too. So we'll get those all torqued up and ready to go. Finally, don't forget all the little minor things we did. So you want to reattach these two fasteners. You also want to reattach the ABS, or the electric parking brake. Remember, the electric parking brake had this metal piece on here that attaches to the upper control arm, so remove that off of the old one. You also need to put back all the ride height sensor. This uses just a tie, so a locking tie, so you need to get one of those. I bought a pack of them at the hardware store the other day, and this just, you gotta remove the old one, cut the new one, put that on there as well. And then don't forget, we also have the last piece that I have to attach, which is the brake fluid line here. And then I'm going to bleed the brakes. I have tightened everything here according to spec, and we are in great shape. That is basically it. You know, you got to put together your assembly here for the brakes and get your rotor on. I'm going to clean up this rotor too afterwards. My hands are just freaking filthy. Probably should have changed gloves a little bit before I did that part of the project, but we are pretty much done. Good luck.